Live. Let's see how this gets started here. We'll see how this goes. Hopefully we'll have David and potentially Stephen coming in with us here. There we go. All right, we are live. Go ahead and nix that. Cool. Well, welcome everybody to the second week of the Unseen Warfare discussion for the book club. Right now it's just me, so we don't really have much of a discussion at this time, but I'm hoping that Dancing David Bear and Bicycle Bear hop in. So I just went ahead and marked like I did last week. I've just kind of started keeping track of some of my tabulated highlights. So, because it seems like even after I mark them and then tabulate them, still a lot of information to try to get through. So I've made just some baby notes here. Also, if you hear banging and smashing, crashing, we had an issue with the raccoon. I think I mentioned that a few weeks ago with David, that it terrorized all of our attic and stuff. So we are putting that up right now. Not me, but our family is putting things back together. So anyway, I've got my paper here and I'll go ahead and just kind of talk through some of the stuff that really stuck out to me as more of the essential notes that I marked through this reading. Let's see. I think I'm about 2/3 of the way through. I'm on page 175 right now out of, what is it, like 280? Out of 280, 175 out of 280. So I'm about 2/3 of the way through. This has been a great read. Last week's was really awesome. This week I marked a whole bunch of stuff. So there was definitely a lot of the application stuff in here this week, whereas last week, of course, we covered so much of the introduction and the foreword and stuff. So there really was just a lot of I don't know what you call it, introductory stuff rather than a lot of the application. So this week we covered a whole lot of application stuff, but I'll go ahead and start. Page 99, I actually found the whole page was excellent, and it's a pretty short one, and I won't go through and read the whole thing, but it's the chapter 11, some reminders that can impel our will towards desire to please God in every activity. And he goes through, it's just a great page talking about how he has created you out of nothing in his own likeness and image and has made all other creatures your servants. He has delivered you from your slavery to the devil, sending down not one of the angels, but his only begotten son to redeem you. Let's see here. What else is that? All of this is a sign of God's great favor and love for you, a favor so great that it is inconceivable how the great Lord of hosts could grant such favors to our nothingness and worthlessness. If we cannot help offering thanks, honor, glory, and obedience to earthly kings for their favors, how much more, immeasurably more, must we worthless ones offer to the Almighty Lord of hosts, who loves us and bestows upon us favors beyond counting. I thought that was excellent. I mean, really, though, how often are we praising the best among us? And of course, in his time, kings and rulers and things like that, which, we do with celebrities and presidents and people in our lives or bosses or whatever. And so I think he's right. Like, how much more should we not praise the king, who sent, or really the creator who sent Jesus to die for us. So 102 was actually my lesson in life that I'm trying to learn right now, as David and I talked just with stomach issues and stuff last week, things that I'm kind of healing through. This quote on 102, he says, others again keep long fasts according to the statutes, yet do not refrain from satisfying their desire to eat their fill and to eat well, which deprives the fast of all value. That something that stuck with me because I was fasting every first Saturday of the month. And then, of course, throughout the week, I'm indulging in, whatever makes me feel good and whatever helps with workouts or, whatever, chicken, rice, steak, potatoes, occasionally veggies. But this has really helped me to put the last really about 6 weeks into perspective. Some days I've eaten nothing and some days I've eaten very little. And it's certainly, like I said, helped to put that into perspective, that you almost kind of render the fasts ineffective if during every other moment of your life, you're constantly indulging. And I think you could say that really about anything. If you're fasting from your phone or any other kind of worship, really, if every other moment of your life is just indulgence all the time, then you really are only taking the 24 hours or whatever 36 hours that you're fasting to truly focus on Christ. And then that's only so long. It's momentary, right? 24 or 36 hours, not that long. But I think his instruction here is to lead a chaste life, and get used to it, enjoy it, understand it. Is kind of what he talks about in the next sentence there. And that those moments of fasting really should be not just the other end of the extreme, but just kind of a logical follow up to your life of shrugging indulgences. So he goes on and says that in multiple places. I didn't mark them all, but he talks about, sleeping on the hard ground, or not wearing adorning clothing or something opulent or comfortable even. He says, just be plain, just be normal, and kind of teach yourself and harden yourself in a way that makes you really focused on the blessings of God, and the filling up the pleasures in your life with pleasures from above, and not necessarily pleasures in your life, which in some ways is kind of the way I am. I don't really care too much about nice clothing. I have very little of that. And, cheap jeans from Kohl's or whatever is typically my way to go, and shirts that I've had for 10 years, and, things like that. So I do have some nice stuff, but to me, it's I just don't spend a lot of money on clothes. And I actually used to take naps on the floor pretty often, because number one, it didn't let me sleep for very long, but number two, it's the uncomfortability of that was like a daily reminder that it could be this way. Just I used to sleep on a concrete floor when I worked in a warehouse, and just would like put my jacket under my head. I mean, you can't nap there very long. I mean, your legs go numb eventually. So I don't know that I was really doing an explicit spiritual exercise, but I certainly learned some valuable lessons from that. So, like I said, yeah, page 102 is certainly a lesson of mine. He goes and talks somewhere else in here about how when you follow and love the Lord, and you partake in his knowledge and truth, he will make you fat. And I'm really hoping for that to come very shortly, to gain some weight back. So let's see. Yeah, 108, where he talks about free will. Really powerful page. Where let's see here. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. If you feel sometimes a strong upsurging of sin, that resistance to it will seem impossible, and the very zeal to oppose it will appear exhausted. Take care, brother, not to give up the struggle, but rouse yourself and stand firm. And that's simple enough. You could find that kind of in like one of those daily devotional calendars. But kind of reading through this, it was like a really human moment from the author here, or whichever one of the revisers kind of steps in and says, like, just stand firm. You're in this. That he calls us brother is shows me that we're not alone in this. Let's see. Talks here through, nothing and nobody can force your will or steal victory from your hands and overthrow you against your will, no matter how obdurate and bitter the war waged in you by the enemies of your salvation. God endowed our free will with such power that even if all a man's faculties, the whole world, and all the demons rose up in arms against him, and attacked him, they could not compel it. And that certainly stuck with me. Once I read that, I was like, he's right. There's a lot of things, I think, in life that I personally would blame other people for putting me in this situation, or forcing my hand or whatever. And I have to realize that even if that's the case, even if all my physical faculties fall apart, or even if the whole world stands against me, that like my choices are my own. My free will is my own, hopefully guided by the Spirit of God. But, it's, I make those decisions in responding to outside stimuli. There's nothing that is not of my own choosing. So, and sometimes you can choose a path that makes life a lot harder and a lot less fun, but hopefully with the other training, like we talked about just a few pages ago, will hopefully make those challenges a lot more bearable, So certainly a lot that I've learned in the last year or so with the current state of things, like what's worth giving up for standing on principle. And there's it's a quote from Steve Franson in one of his songs, and I don't know if he took this from somewhere else, but he says, "Virtue, don't put food on the table." And I found that stuck with me a lot, because I've listened to his albums often, and just getting, there's a point where you can stand on principle and forego things, but then at some point you almost have to realize, like, virtue may not put food on the table, but I guess ultimately it's trusting God too, that he will. So I've struggled with that a lot the last year or so. Let's see. Oh yeah, 112 through 115, he talks about the fight, and he actually goes through quite a bit. And I'm not going to read all obviously like 4 pages, but again, it's a great follow-up, and obviously it's a Christian-oriented book, and I think it's more orthodox, but a great follow-up to, I have Libido Domandi down here. Talks about, in the same way, he does not destroy all our passions at once, but leaves them in us, letting them fight against us till our very death, for just the same purpose, namely to prove our love for him and our obedience to his will, and to train us in spiritual warfare. I thought that was great. I mean, really, that it makes me wonder about the thorn in Paul's side that he talks about, that like, I wonder if things like that, it's not saying that God put them there, but he allows them to stay. Sometimes there are things in our life, a mindset, a feeling, a physical ailment, potentially. Like he says here, passions, things like that, that can drive us crazy, drive us insane sometimes, and make us fight, make us cry, make us lose sleep. But in a way, those internal battles are what make us reliant on him and his spirit, and reflecting back on that. And that's something, like I said, over the last 6 weeks or so that I've found myself in. Like, anytime I feel pain, I'm just praying about stuff, and in this book and in my Bible and stuff. And then even when I feel joy, there's a point in here where he says, if you have good thoughts, just remember to turn to the Lord and be thankful. And I thought that was just so simple, that even to be thankful for something as a pure, good, or fun thought, to just thank God for that moment of clarity and peace, or a laugh, or, a good nostalgic moment. Just be thankful for that. But there's a whole section here, A through K, about getting used to the warfare, strict observance of his commandments, that we would always have a recourse to God, that we don't hate with our heart, and that we don't become careless and negligent. It's a really great section there. Let's see where else. We've got 114 and 115 with the other ones I had here. I really enjoyed this. Moreover, his desire to save you is greater than that of the enemy to destroy you. So fight and never weary of the labors of this warfare. He follows it up on the other side. Do not let the enemy seduce you by the suggestion, let go just for an hour. Very well, just for an hour. But what will become of you if you relinquish your life in God to abandon yourself to the world and its comforts and to bodily enjoyments? You will be a renegade from God, which is terrible for a single moment, let alone an hour. He goes on to talk about how the devil will have a hold on you, obviously, for much longer than an hour once you give in and give in and give in. So I really, fantastic thoughts. So fight and never be weary of the labors of this warfare. And again, that kind of follows up that other quote about just stand firm and stick to it. I think it's a great point that, we are stronger than the devil, and God has our back and is supporting us in every way. And the only way we can fight is through him. But just don't even let go for an hour. That's certainly something that has compelled me over the last couple of weeks, helped me change my mindset on a few things. And also that really, if you're fighting, the spiritual war, then, and you really do have Christ at your right hand. I think he mentions at one point, the archangels and Christ are at one hand and the devil's at the left. If you really are fighting the right way, then you really never will weary and be tired of the battle. You might get tired, but you will never really quit, because you are fueled by God. So let's see, I have 124. Oh yeah, this is great. This is something I've kind of struggled with over the last, I don't know, few years, where I feel like sometimes I have to always be doing something. And a lot of that I want to be productive. And a lot of it really isn't spiritual, right? And I feel like sometimes, even after reading this book for half an hour or 45 minutes, it's a lot. And I don't want to lose a lot of the concepts and stuff like David and I talked about last week. I'd really like to read a few pages at a time, think on it and pray on it or whatever, or go throughout my day and then read a few pages at a time and come back to it and read a few at night, and instead of just like blitzing through 40 pages at once. And it really helps to kind of just like meditate on this stuff. But I find sometimes I have to take a break from something like this, or take a break from something that is work or that I love, just to do something that's a little bit fun and a little bit stress relieving. And it's something like I enjoy making videos and stuff, or making graphics, or taking pictures and editing those and whatever. And it did kind of make me wonder, is that just me doing something that I like? Let me go ahead and read this here. Kind of cracked me up. To avoid falling into the pernicious evil of negligence, which will stop your progress towards perfection and deliver you into the hands of the enemy, you must flee all kinds of inquisitiveness, any kind of cleaving to something earthly, all arbitrary actions, or, quote, doing what I like, which is totally out of keeping with your position. And then he later says, never delay in undertaking any work you have to do, for the first brief delay will lead to a second, more prolonged one, and the second to a third, and longer, and so on. If you satisfy this desire, having tasted the pleasure of inaction, you will little by little form a habit of laziness and inaction, for which the passion of doing nothing will possess you to such an extent that you will cease to even see how incongruous and criminal it is, except perhaps when you weary of the laziness and are again eager to take up your work. Then you will see with shame, here we go, then you will see with shame how negligent you have been and how many necessary works you have neglected for the sake of the empty and useless doing what you like. And I do think there are times for rest, and typically I would say pleasure. I guess you almost have to shed that now as we kind of go through this book. I have to look at some of those things and say, is this really producing anything? And not that you always have to be like working a side hustle, but is what I like, is doing what I like truly producing like spiritual strength or like fullness and strength of character? I don't know that everything will. Maybe it should. If you're really doing if Christ strengthens you in all things and you're doing all things to the glory of God, kind of shouldn't they? Or are you really just wasting time, scrolling through social media? That's usually just brainless activity anyway, but playing a video game or reading a book for pleasure. Even I'm reading a book right now. Well, I don't see it that I read in high school, and the whole series is just great. It's the Pendragon series. I mentioned that before on here, but I read it because it's something I like, or I did, and I'm rereading it, gosh, like 10 years later, more than. And I'm just, obviously, I'm a little more mature probably than the reading level that it is, but kind of going through it, I'm like, well, it's kind of a guilty pleasure or a bit of an indulgence in a way, but it also provides kind of a respite from the really hard-hitting, almost mentally taxing stuff that you read from time to time. So I think sometimes it's nice to let go and let loose. But as I read this, I was like, sometimes it is just doing something that you like and it really doesn't produce anything. There's actually a quote from a book, The Art of Acting by Stella Adler, I think. And in one of the first few pages, she talks about put down those frivolous novels or whatever. She's like, it's time to read Shakespeare. It's time to read Goethe. It's time to read who are some of the other people that she has? Dante, I think, is one of the other ones. There's a couple authors she mentions. It's time to like get out of the childish games of the light reading that you're doing, these fiction novels, and to read stuff that really like tugs at your heart, stretches your vocabulary, makes you think, really works on your imagination, but is also like it's a maturity and kind of like eating steak instead of milk. I thought that was kind of funny, but in a way she's right. If you really are going to be a serious actor, you have to engage with serious material, stuff that makes you think, and that really kind of you have to ponder a long time later, or that you gain, life lessons from, even is a really great metric for the reading that you're going through. So let's see what else. 127. Oh yeah, on time. I thought this was a great little quote. This is exactly what I had marked down, but you can always rely on God's help in return for your great trust in it. And I've talked about this before with a Bible study group of mine where you have to believe in the power of Christ, the healing or the guidance or whatever, in order to really receive the gifts. You can't just say that you do it or pretend that you do it. You really have to manifest that in your heart and in your mind, that I do believe in this power. I do believe in the guiding hand of God. And I thought that was kind of just a great buttressing of that idea that you have to trust in God's help in order to truly receive it. You can't just say it or really call on it in your last moment of battle or whatever and say, oh, trust you now. It's you really do have to trust in that often and all the time. Spend all the hours of your life in a way pleasing to God. Keep in your mind the thought that after the present hour, you will not be given another, and that you will have to render a strict account for every minute of this present hour. Remember that the time you have in your hands is priceless, and if you waste it uselessly, the hour will come when you will seek and not find it. And then he actually goes on, I didn't even mark this, but consider as lost a day when, although performing good deeds, you have not struggled to overcome your bad tendencies and desires. But the other part was really mainly it, that they talk about, or most, Christians or my family or churches or schools or whatever will talk about how you have to account for every deed in front of Christ and at the end of your life. And I thought that was a great kind of perspective shift that he's going to ask you to account for every minute of your life. I will say, as I reviewed this, that helped me keep my phone out of my hand a lot today. As I sat there and said, am I really wasting as I watch some of the minutes tick off watching a YouTube video or scrolling through Telegram or something? I was like, if I'm really going to account for every minute, what can I save for these minutes? And even really, if I'm reading this book or we're doing this with my Catalyst book club, or we're wrapping it up actually for May, which is a really good book, Influence the Psychology of Persuasion. I'm sitting here and I'm like, if I'm just going to scroll through social media or watch a stupid video, shouldn't I really use my time better and read something like this that's good for my mind or good for my soul, that's professionally helpful or spiritually helpful? So it really does help, especially when I'm in the reading mindset and I like sit in the chair and I'm intending to read, or sitting at my desk and pull out the phone just for a minute. And then 15 minutes goes by and I go, you know what? That was like 10 pages I could have finished of something way more beneficial than just scrolling through mindless nonsense. I will say too, something I've started recently, tried to be better at really over the last few months, but recently have focused on, is not being on my phone in the first 20 or so minutes of the day. I don't do this long stretch, but basically I'll wake up, see if I have anything truly urgent, which is basically just a message from my fiance. And that's really all I care about in the morning. And then I put it down. I don't do any scrolling. I don't do any dopamine hits. I really don't do anything like that. Because what I want to do is get started with something like this, even just a couple of pages, because I feel like it really does help lock in a less erratic mindset. And it also kind of gives me something to think on for a little bit. And I'll do a few minutes of meditation and, take a shower, get breakfast, maybe do a workout or go for a walk or something. But those first few minutes, I just try to keep my phone out of my hand so that I can set the mindset for the day. And I don't know if it's a true scientific study or whatever, but I think a common rhetoric in this kind of self-improvement area of life is the first 20 minutes of your day can set the tone for the rest of your day. And I really do believe that if you don't start it with the news or something awful, or like I said, even just like a massive dopamine hit, I really do think it kind of sets how your morning goes and how your day can kick off. So starting with a little reading like this, something intense to think about, or something even just encouraging to read, and also, just like a stream of conscious thoughts, as opposed to, comic, meme, quote, 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 things like that. So let's see. This is really my last one that I marked. I read up through, like I said, page 175. I really only marked through about 135. I've got some other stuff. I can just cut it short since no one hopped on tonight, which is no harm, no foul. I made a post pretty late. I'm going to try to get better at that and have those posts prepared like Saturday, something like that, so that people are aware and they can kind of plan their evening. When I do stuff within a couple of hours, I don't think people really are on the Beartarian Times app as much as they might be on other social media, which I know most of us are getting away from that stuff anyway. But usually you can kind of like hop on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, scroll for a little bit and get a pretty good idea. Whereas Beartarian Times, I don't think it's really truly structured that way. And so my posts may not be seen within a few hours. So I may start posting on Saturdays, the update and the previous week's stuff. So let me go ahead and just read this last one here. 137, like I said, is about where I stopped. Oh, yeah, it's a great place to end it. Like I said earlier, when a good thought comes to your mind, turn to God, and realizing that it is sent by him, give thanks. And this is something that I really appreciate, but I kind of struggle with as you kind of go through things with the Stoics or with self-help. I hate to call it self-help, self-improvement, and philosophy, and even religious perspectives. People like even Jesse Lee Peterson talks about how you are not your thoughts. Those thoughts come from outside of you. They come from something or someone else, or they're influenced by the devil or by God. And then some people say, like I've mentioned before in As a Man Thinketh, he talks about how you are your thoughts, and from the heart stems, or from the mind stems. I don't even know that I could flip to something immediately, but Yeah, I really can't find something. Men do not attract that which they want, but that which they are. Their whims, fancies, and ambitions are thwarted at every step, but their inmost thoughts and desires are fed with their own food, be it foul or clean. The divinity that shapes our ends is in ourselves. It is our very self. Um, yeah, it's there's a whole bunch in here about how you are your thoughts and you have to curate them and let those things manifest, like I said, in your heart and eventually into your hands and whatnot, and your philosophies and the way you see life. So I still struggle with that, and maybe it's some sort of hybrid. I don't know that you can have a hybrid, but are those things us, or are they from Satan or God, and then they influence who we are? I don't know. I don't know. A lot of thinking to do on that one. So I'll probably just wrap it up there. I think it's been a solid half an hour. It's been a great chat so far. We'll probably do this another week or two, maybe another week or so, and then we'll start looking for our other book to post out and get some people engaged. And we'll probably carry this a little bit into June and then do a little slowdown week or something and just keep it light. So really enjoying this. Like I said, I really have kind of the first week or so, I really did try to rush through it. And I still highlighted some good stuff. Like I said, I still got some good tabulations in here and some good notes. But this last week, I really tried to do a few pages at a time. And when I kind of felt my mind start to get full almost, I would just quit. I'd mark what I needed to and then just quit. So I've got about a third left. I doubt I'll finish it this week. I'm not going to try to finish it this week. And then, yeah, we'll go from there. And hopefully we can get some people engaged and hopefully see David and Steve before we finished the book. So had a great chat with David last week and looking forward to our next ones as well. So if you do end up watching this or listening to this, I hope you enjoyed the shorter video. Like I said, I only made about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 total thoughts just to kind of give some structure to this and discuss some things and review it. And it also helps keep it in my brain as well. So anyway, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. I appreciate you tuning in, and hopefully you will join us for the next one, potentially live. So, and maybe we'll restructure this, but I do enjoy kind of ending the week on this and kicking off the week on the right foot with some good, intense discussions about good material. So be on the lookout for the next video, and thanks.